a fisherman with nothing but a broken boat and a broken heart. His wife had given up on him, his village mocked him, and yet he refused to surrender. What happened next on the open sea will teach you a lesson about patience, mercy, and destiny you'll never forget. Before we start, don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more inspiring stories, and share in the comments where you're watching from. The last rays of the sun were falling on a small wooden house by the sea. This was Aaron's home, a simple, hard-working, yet unfortunate fisherman. Every day, Aaron took his little boat out into the ocean, caught fish, and that's how he managed his family's expenses. But for many days now, he hadn't caught a single fish. The poverty was so crushing that whenever strong winds blew, the salty ocean breeze shook the fragile wooden house as if it might collapse at any moment. His wife, Julia, who once loved him deeply, had grown tired of his constant failures. Often, in the silence of her heart, she wondered why she had ever married such a useless man. She never said it to his face, but patience had long since left her. One day, she quietly walked out of the house and sat by the shore. The waves were rising, the wind was blowing, and she was lost in heavy thoughts. Muttering under her breath, she said, "What kind of life have I chosen? This man is broke, worthless. If he comes back empty-handed today, too, I'll leave this house forever." As she sat there in her bitterness, she suddenly saw a boat approaching in the distance. It was her husband, Aaron, rowing toward the shore. For a brief moment, Julia's eyes lit up with hope. Maybe fortune had finally shown them mercy. She stood up, her gaze fixed on the boat. But the closer it came, the dimmer her face became. The boat was empty. Once again, Aaron had caught nothing. Shame filled his eyes. He couldn't even look at his wife. He tied the boat to the shore and walked silently toward the house. Anger was written all over Julia's face. As soon as Aaron stepped inside, she stormed up to him and snapped, "Even today, other fishermen came back with their nets full, but you're so cursed you haven't caught a single fish in days." Aaron sighed, closed his eyes, and in a soft voice said, "Julia, I'm trying with everything I have, but what can I do? Maybe luck just isn't on my side. Don't worry, everything will be fine." Julia, with bitterness in her tone, replied, "If tomorrow you come home again without fish, I'll leave you forever." Then, with a scornful look, she stormed off into the kitchen, slamming pots and pans as if she didn't even want to cook for him. Aaron said quietly, "Julia, I know you'll never leave me." But she gave no reply. With a tired voice, Aaron pleaded, "I'm starving. I haven't eaten all day. Please, give me something to eat." Julia spun around in fury and shouted, "And where am I supposed to get food from? If you brought something home, I'd cook it. Because of you, I've been hungry for days. Living with you, starving to death, is worse than going back to my parents' house, or even throwing myself into the sea." Aaron listened to her words silently, then let out a deep breath. Slowly, he stood up and stepped outside to ask the neighbors for food. The wind outside was growing stronger. Dark clouds gathered in the sky, and the scent of the damp ocean spread through the air. As soon as Aaron walked out the door, Julia uncovered the pots she had hidden. She took out the food she had secretly kept for herself, sat down, and ate alone, without the man who spent his days and nights working only for her. Night had grown deep, a chill spread through the air, and clouds drifted slowly across the sky. Aaron walked quietly to the door of a house in the village. He stopped for a moment, hesitated, and then gently knocked. The door creaked open, and another fisherman stepped outside. Aaron spoke softly, "Brother, there's nothing to eat at home tonight. Could you please give me a little food?" The fisherman stared at him for a few moments, then smirked and said mockingly, "Aaron, everyone knows your luck has run out. You haven't caught a single fish in days. My house is empty too. Don't bother coming to my door again." Aaron glanced inside and saw baskets in the corner, piled high with fish, ready to be sold at the market the next morning. With pleading eyes, he said, "For God's sake, you've caught plenty today. Could you not give me just one fish? I'm not begging. Think of it as a loan. The very first fish I catch, I'll return it to you." The fisherman snapped angrily, "You haven't caught a fish in days. What will you return? Leave now, and don't waste my time." Aaron turned away in silence. He tried another house, knocked again, but all he found there too was humiliation. The villagers all behaved the same. No one wanted to be near the fisherman, whose nets even the sea seemed to have abandoned. His steps grew heavy. In despair, he walked down to the shore and sat by the restless water. Cold winds brushed against his face as tears streamed from his eyes. Looking up to the heavens, he cried, "Lord, have mercy on your weak servant. Grant me a way to provide. Everyone else's nets are full. Why is mine always empty? Why am I the only one left deprived?" His beard was wet with tears, and hunger had broken his strength. Life itself felt as though it had stopped. With his head lowered, he sat in silence, until suddenly a voice echoed nearby. "Son, why are you sitting here? The tide is rising fast. This place can be dangerous." Aaron lifted his gaze. Standing before him was an old man with a white beard, a gentle face, and eyes that seemed to glow with kindness. But Aaron, lost in his misery, barely registered his words. The old man came closer, placed a hand on his shoulder, and said softly, "Son, you look troubled. Tell me, what's the matter?" In a weary voice, Aaron replied, "Sir, could you give me something to eat?" The old man smiled gently. "Is that all? You should have said so earlier. Wait here, I'll be right back." He turned and walked toward his home. Aaron sat still, the wind tangling his hair, the waves brushing against his feet. After a short while, the old man returned, holding a small pot of warm food. He placed it before Aaron and said, "Here, son, this is for you." Tears welled up in Aaron's eyes. Accepting the food, he said with a trembling voice, "May God bless you. You've saved my dignity." The old man placed a loving hand on his head and quietly walked away. Aaron carried the food home, his steps quicker now. When he entered the house, he called out with joy, "Look, Julia, I brought food." But Julia had already eaten. She took most of the food for herself and pushed a small portion toward Aaron. Yet Aaron did not complain. He ate a little, smiled as if he had found peace after years of struggle, and whispered a prayer. Then, within God's name, he lay down to sleep. In his heart, he longed for dawn to rise before the sun set out into the sea once more, and hoped that tomorrow, at last, fortune would show him mercy. The morning had barely broken. A faint light spread across the sky when Aaron's eyes opened. Despite the exhaustion of the long night, he told himself, "No, today I will not give up." He rose from his bed, walked to his boat, and looked up at the sky. "Lord, change my fate today," he whispered. He pushed his old, fragile boat into the water and sailed toward the deep sea, the very place he had always feared. His boat was too weak to withstand the fierce currents, but today he had forgotten that fear. There was only one thought in his heart. He must bring something home for his wife, Julia. For her, he was willing to risk his life. The winds were harsh, the waves high, but Aaron's determination was stronger. He picked up his worn-out net, whispered in God's name, and cast it boldly into the sea. The net sank into the waters, and Aaron sat in silence, waiting. It tugged lightly, then stilled. Time passed, but nothing happened. He sat lost in thought, Julia's harsh words from last night echoing in his ears. "If you return empty-handed again tomorrow, I'll leave you forever." Aaron closed his eyes. His heart grew heavy. "If fate abandons me again today, she truly will leave, and my home will be destroyed." With that thought, his fear dissolved. The sea no longer scared him. Even his own life didn't matter anymore. There was only one burning desire in his heart: to catch a fish today at any cost, even if it meant sacrificing his life. This was love. A love Julia had perhaps never understood. If only she had given him a little encouragement, Aaron's world might have been different. But Julia only cared for herself. Perhaps destiny wanted Aaron to finally see this truth. Hours slipped by. He cast his net again and again, only to pull it back empty each time. By now, the sun was blazing, its rays scorching his face. Sweat poured down, but Aaron did not give up. Then his eyes caught sight of another boat. For a moment, he froze. A familiar face was sitting in it, squinting. he realized it was Mark, the same fisherman whose door he had knocked on the night before, the same man who refused to spare even a single fish. Mark's boat was large, sturdy, and overflowing with fish. His nets were new, his equipment fine. Aaron watched with longing as Mark laughed and joked, casting net after net, each one returning heavy with dozens of fish, as if the sea itself favored him. Aaron glanced down. His own net was still empty. He lifted his eyes to the heavens and murmured, "Lord, why are only my nets empty?" Time passed, and the sun dipped toward the horizon. Weary and starving, Aaron finally turned his boat back toward shore. By the time he reached his home, night had already fallen. His heart pounded with fear. Had Julia truly left him? He pushed open the door and saw her still there. Relief washed over him for a moment, but he could not bring himself to meet her eyes. Softly, he lied. "Today I caught a huge fish, but just as I was pulling it into the boat, it slipped from my hands and vanished into the sea. Tomorrow, it will be mine." Julia lay on the bed, listening silently, not speaking a word. Aaron continued gently, "I know you'll never leave me. I will not lose hope. You'll see our good days will come very soon." But her face remained expressionless. Inside, her mind was made up. At dawn, she would leave this house forever. Her trunk was already packed, waiting for the night to end. Aaron knew nothing of this. To him, her presence in the house meant she was still with him. That thought gave him comfort. He lay down on the bed, closed his eyes, and drifted into sleep, unaware that tomorrow's sunrise would bring the greatest trial of his life. It was morning. The air carried a cool freshness, mixed with the salty scent of the sea. When Aaron awoke from sleep, only one thought burned in his heart. Today he would fight harder than ever before. Today, he would change his destiny. He quietly looked at his old boat, ran his hand over its weak wooden planks as if speaking to an old friend, and whispered, "Today, we will not give up." He pushed the boat toward the sea and said to himself, "Even if a storm comes, I will sail into the deep waters today." Back at the house, Julia woke up. She saw that Aaron was gone. There was no sadness in her heart, only a strange calm, as if her decision was already made. She lifted the trunk she had packed the night before, gathered her clothes, jewelry, and a few belongings, and walked toward the door. For a brief moment, she turned to look at the house, the same house that once held hope and laughter, but now only silence. She quietly closed the door behind her and left for her parents' home. Meanwhile, Aaron had reached the deep waters of the sea. The waves were wild, the winds fierce, the waters dangerous. But there was no fear in his heart anymore. He picked up his net, whispered in God's name, and threw it with all his strength into the sea. For a while, the net disappeared beneath the waves. Then suddenly, it began to stir. Aaron's eyes widened in surprise. He pulled hard on the rope, the weight dragging heavily as though something enormous was trapped inside. Finally, he hauled it up, and his eyes went wide with wonder. Inside the net was a massive fish, and with her, several small ones. Her young, the great fish, thrashed, her eyes pleading, almost as if she were trying to speak to him. Aaron gasped, "My God, I've never seen a fish like this." His heart was filled with joy, but also with pity. The little fish wriggled helplessly, trying to reach their mother. Aaron's heart softened. Carefully, he loosened the net and released the small fish back into the sea. They swam around their mother, refusing to leave her side. Aaron stared at them, torn inside. "What do I do? If I let them go, I'll return home empty-handed. But if I keep the mother, what will happen to her children?" After a long hesitation, he pulled the big fish into his boat. She flopped and struggled against the wood, while her young leaped desperately in the water. As if calling her back, Aaron looked down, and his heart trembled. Compassion overcame him. "No, I cannot be cruel. I would rather go hungry than make these children orphans." Taking a deep breath, Aaron lifted the fish and returned her to the sea. She swam away, but for a moment, she stopped. Turning back toward him, her eyes seemed to shine with gratitude, as if saying, "Thank you." Then, with her young beside her, she disappeared into the depths. Aaron sat quietly in his boat, torn between emptiness and peace. "What have I done?" he muttered. But then another voice rose from within. No, I did the right thing. If I am not happy, so be it. At least that fish and her children are. He bowed his head. Moments later, he heard a sound, something striking the bottom of his boat. Startled, he peered over the edge. Something shimmered in the water. Reaching down, his hand closed around a golden piece. His eyes widened. Then, astonishingly, the same great fish returned. In her mouth was another piece of gold, which she placed before him, as if in thanks. Aaron took it, stunned, as the fish once again vanished into the deep. Now, in his net, there was gold. His fate had changed. Smiling with joy, Aaron whispered, "Today Julia will be so happy. Everything will be fine now." He turned his boat toward home, his heart filled with hope. But when he arrived, silence greeted him. He called out, "Julia, Julia." There was no answer. A dread fell upon him. Suddenly, her words echoed in his mind. "If you return empty-handed again tomorrow, I will leave you." His steps faltered as he walked inside. The house was empty. He rushed outside, looking around, but she was truly gone. Gold was in his hands, but his heart was empty. He sat down, looked up at the sky, and whispered, "So this is my fate." When wealth finally came to me, love walked away. He sold the gold in the market, the coins heavy in his hands. But as he stared at them, tears streamed down his face. That night, he sat once more by the shore. Wave after wave crashed against his feet. He had everything now, except his wife. And in that moment, he finally understood. Julia had never stayed for love, only for comfort. And now that fortune was his, she had still abandoned him. Aaron lifted his eyes to the heavens and said softly, "Those meant to stay by your side, stay in every condition. And those meant to leave, will leave even in times of joy." The waves roared louder, as if the sea itself was answering him. In the darkness of the night, the waves of the sea roared. The faint glow of the moon shimmered on the water, as if each wave carried an old memory with it. Aaron sat on the sand, his eyes fixed on the sky. Wealth was now in his hands, but peace was not in his heart. Softly, he whispered, "Lord, I found gold, but I lost a piece of my life. I gave love, but in return, I received loneliness." The ocean breeze brushed against his face, as though nature itself was trying to comfort him. Lost in thought, he murmured, "When my hands were empty, my heart was full of hope. Now, when my hands are full, my heart is empty." He sat there for a long time. Far away, across the horizon, the first light of dawn began to appear. A faint smile touched his lips as he said quietly, "Perhaps this is the truth. Provision and destiny are in God's hands. But a man's true treasure is his patience and his heart." He scooped up a handful of sand and slowly let it fall into the sea. The waves came and swallowed it, as if carrying away Aaron's sorrow with them. He looked at the sea one last time, the same sea that had tested him, and the same sea that had changed his fate. Then he rose and walked away, leaving his footprints behind on the sand. But the story does not end there. This is a story for every person who feels like giving up during hard times, for those who think destiny is always against them. Aaron's life teaches us that patience is never wasted. The greater the trial, the greater the reward. Those who abandon you in difficult times only reveal their true selves. And those who endure with patience are the ones who ultimately succeed. In good times, even strangers will stand by you. But true companionship is the one that remains in your worst moments. That is the message of this story. Life never stays the same. The one who is empty-handed today may be the one whose hands are full tomorrow. Hold on to patience, faith, and a pure heart. Because destiny may take time to change, but God never lets any effort or act of goodness go to waste. Friends, this is not just a story of a fisherman. It's the story of all of us. In life, every person sails through some kind of sea, some through poverty, some through sorrow, some through loneliness. But the real strength of a person is shown when, despite the crashing waves, he does not let his boat sink. Aaron had nothing except patience. He had no wealth, but he had a pure heart. And that's why, when he let go of greed and chose mercy, God gave him something far greater than money could ever buy: honor, peace, and the glow of destiny. The world often mistakes power and wealth for success. But true success lies in this: that no matter how difficult your circumstances are, you never turn away from goodness. Remember, fate does change one day, but it only favors those who refuse to give up. Every turn in life is a test. Sometimes it's in relationships, sometimes in livelihood, and sometimes in faith itself. Aaron's patience teaches us that the one who holds on to belief and courage will ultimately prevail. Those who leave us in hard times are only there to show us who our true companions really are. In good times, everyone walks by your side, but in dark times, you learn who truly belongs to you. So, if your hands are empty today, don't lose hope. Tomorrow, those very same hands may be filled with provision, peace, and blessings. Just keep your heart pure, keep working hard, and hold firmly to patience. Because God never lets anyone's patience go to waste. My friends, I hope Aaron's story touched your heart. If you found meaning in this story, share it with others, so they too can understand that the reward for patience is always sweet. Until the next story, take care of yourself and your loved ones, and may peace be upon you.